The further we go down James Gunn's DCU little hole, the more disinterested I become. Yes, I'm the same person who got excited for the casting of his new Superman. But things are starting to take a turn of injustice and confusion. He told us that Henry Cavill was too old to play Superman. He was looking to cast a younger Superman. We went from people from the age of 20 to 25, and finally I think David Corenswet is about, 28, 30, whatever he is. So one minute he tells us his Suicide Squad kind of movie and Peacemaker are canon in the new DCU, then he says they're not. Everything he says makes zero sense. Then he says Blue Beetle isn't a DCU movie, but he's the first DC Universe character. I do understand what he means, that he's going to use the same actor as that character in the DC Universe. But a lot of people are getting confused. Well, we have a new element of injustice and confusion. Yesterday, in a quote, Gal Gadot said that her, James Gunn, and Peter Safran are developing a new version of Wonder Woman 3. And this makes zero sense. Henry Cavill, an actor only 2 years her senior, was removed as Superman, and he was removed. He didn't have the contract, no, so he wasn't officially fired, as James Gunn has tried to relabel it. But you didn't want him as Superman, you got rid of him, probably because the studio don't like him, because he has too many opinions, but most importantly of all, he was fired because he was British. Make no mistake about that. Anyway, so what is the DCU? Is it a reboot? A soft reboot? Or is it what I said all along, a recycling and a kind of a remarketing strategy of the DCEU? Yes, I think so. Now, James Gunn was very, very quiet on Gal Gadot for a long time. But I believe that they were negotiating and having heated debate on whether or not she should have a production credit, a creative credit, the same creative credit she had in Wonder Woman 84, and we all know how that turned out, don't we? I think she forced their hand and she wouldn't be involved unless she had the same creative producer credit as she did with Patty Jenkins in Wonder Woman 84. She helped develop Wonder Woman 84 with Jeff Johns and Patty Jenkins, and it was a shit, terrible film apart from Hans Zimmer's outstanding score. I believe the reason it took so long for her to be involved in the DCU Wonder Woman is because she wanted to develop this character. And don't be surprised after all of that Patty Jenkins returns to direct this movie, because Gal will have some kind of advisory authority on who directs this movie, because she's going to have a production credit. She's going to have a creative credit. That's a problem to me. What is this? Henry Cavill isn't Superman. Ben Affleck isn't Batman, but Gal Gadot is still Wonder Woman. I thought Gal was amazing in BVS as the character and in the first movie, co-written and co-ghost directed by Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder is the only one who's been able to pull off live action Wonder Woman. That's a factual statement. Some of you may not like his DCEU, his Batman, his Superman, but you all know, and it may kind of choke you to admit this publicly and loudly, that Zack Snyder pulled off Wonder Woman, and he still could. So why is Gal still Wonder Woman? As I say, I love her as Wonder Woman, but if you're replacing Henry and Ben and Jared Leto as Joker, we're probably going to get another actor as Joker, because we know that Gunn and Jared Leto don't get on, and we know that Jared's casting as the Joker was also somewhat controversial. So why is Gal Gadot still Wonder Woman? It's a huge issue for me. You know, as I say, I have no personal issue with the woman, but this smells of yesterday's garbage. And don't forget this, that actually Henry Cavill and the director of Mission Impossible Fallout developed the script and a pitch for a Man of Steel sequel. It was rejected instantaneously by the previous leadership of Warner Brothers Pictures. So why is it okay for that to be chucked out, but it's okay for Gal Gadot to develop a new Wonder Woman 3 with Peter Safran and Zack Snyder? Red flag number one. But as I've already said, red flag number two is that most of Zack Snyder's DCEU is being recast. Why not her? She's only 2 years younger, as I've already said, than Henry Cavill. Why is she not too young and Henry Cavill is? You may hate the Snyderverse, but I don't know a person who hates Henry Cavill's Superman. The fact remains that Henry Cavill should still be Clark Kent, Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, aka Superman. There's no relevant reason why Henry shouldn't still be Superman. The people, you see, they love him. And that's all that matters. And James Gunn, the reason that the Snyder fans despise James Gunn is for this decision. This is the reason. Now, obviously, there are other issues with his historical tweets and things that he's being accused of that are also a problem for the Snyder fans. But the fundamental issue is that he replaced Henry Cavill. And the truth of the matter is, even though I've accepted it and I've calmed down about it, it was a problematic decision. He's popular as Superman. He's one of the greatest actors to play the role. You know, equally as iconic as Christopher Reeve. There's no question about that. I'm lucky because I like the lighter, comic book, accurate DC kind of movies, but I also love what Snyder did as well. I'm not someone who needs things to be lighter. I'm not someone who needs things to be dark. And I've liked lots of different versions. So I love the Snyderverse, but I also love Donner's Superman. So I can take both. I like a lot of Phase 1, Phase 2, and some of Phase 3 of the MCU. I can take different versions of comic book characters. But as much as I love Gal, and I love what Zack did with her as Wonder Woman, it makes zero sense why she's going to play Wonder Woman. If we're saying it's going to finish off her Wonder Woman arc, well, Zack Snyder started her Wonder Woman arc in BVS. She said she walked away from Man at the end of BVS, right? Because they became a warmonger. You know, humanity became warmongering. Then they kind of changed it in Wonder Woman 84 to basically say that that moment really didn't happen, which is pathetic. Because that line she was given at the end of BVS had nuance. Oh no, better not have any nuance for Wonder Woman. Instead, let's have some cringy cameos like in Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and the Flash movie, where she makes Batman and the Flash look like fucking idiots, written by a woke writer, Christina Hodson. No surprise there. So, if you're going to ask me the question, should Gal Gadot still be playing Wonder Woman? With Henry Cavill not playing Superman, with Ben Affleck not playing Batman, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And personally, I think it's wrong. I was triggered yesterday as soon as I heard this news. Gal Gadot should no longer be playing Wonder Woman. In fact, even though I don't like Wonder Woman 84, her arc finished off pretty well. She could end up, you know, having a relationship with that guy in the end of the movie. The guy she had sex with while Steve Trevor's ghost was inside him. At least she's seen him naked before, right? So she got a kind of ending. They ruined her arc. Wonder Woman 84 ruins her arc. But it's over. They should leave Gal Gadot at that. Now, if Henry was staying and Ben was staying and they were going to restore the Snyderverse, that would be different. They're just going to do another flop movie. It's not going to work. Either James Gunn has a vision, and some of his ideas do sound very exciting. I've already said that. I'm not going to go back on that. But Ben, Henry are not going to be there. Amy Adams is not going to be there. So why is Gal Gadot? I can't tell you why. I know why. But if I tell you why, I'm going to get my channel closed down. So I can't tell you why. There's a multitude of reasons why Gal is remaining in this role. And of course, the real DC fans are cheering this and celebrating this. But on every level, it's wrong. Quite simply, Gal Gadot should no longer be Wonder Woman. Now, it's very, very, very interesting, something else that's going on over on Twitter. So, former CEO of Warner Brothers Pictures, or Warner Brothers itself, Greg Silverman, has suddenly come onto Twitter, or X, and he's posting a lot. I've never seen him post up to the past few weeks. Now, a fan tried to tell, basically he tried to tell Silverman that all Snyder's movies for WB were flops. Actually, he said, the only film that was a flop was Sucker Punch, but the DC movies were hugely profitable for WB. Greg said this because he was CEO at the time. He said that Watchmen was profitable, Man of Steel was profitable, and Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice theatrically was profitable because it made just under 900 million. It didn't make as much as they wanted it to make. I think WB wanted a couple of billion. They wanted Force Awakens money, Spider-Man No Way Home, etc., etc. It didn't even make what, Barbie will finally make in the end. But it did well. It was a controversial movie. It was a polarizing movie. That's why it didn't do better. Now, in terms of the Snyder Cut, it did make a profit. It did put butts in seats for HBO Max for a short while. And the physical copies sold shitloads. So all four of Zack Snyder's DC movies, because Watchmen is a DC movie, were very polarizing, but beautiful artistic achievements. And Greg basically telling this fan, no, Snyder's DC movies have been hugely profitable. But movie and DC Twitter think they know more than a CEO who was actually there. But that's not really what I want to talk about briefly. What I want to talk about here is, isn't it interesting that all of a sudden, Greg Silverman, a former CEO of WB, is suddenly talking. Zack Snyder's suddenly telling us to support Blue Beetle, or he's saying he's going to see it with his kids, #representation matters. These things are happening next to each other. I believe with Silverman tweeting and Snyder being very supportive for WB, as he has been for some time, saying this new leadership is better than the old one. Well, a vagrant running Warner Brothers Discovery would be an improvement on Toby Emmerich. But it's very interesting. And I believe something is cooking with Snyder. Could Snyder direct the authority for James Gunn? Anything is possible in this game. Never say no about anything in this game. Do you remember when you all said it was impossible for the Snyder Cut to be released, that it didn't exist when it did, right? Just needed putting together. And Zack got 70 million from AT&T. Obviously, everything aligned well for that to happen. And even that didn't happen. He nearly quit on doing that because they were making his life a living hell. We know there's elements still in Warner Brothers who can't stand Zack Snyder. Never forget, we recently saw a documentary where they purposely added sequences from Justice League in the documentary and refused to put sequences from the Snyder Cut. That is toxic. And I called out James Gunn about this on Twitter. I wasn't blaming him. I don't believe it's James' fault, but it's outrageous. So, I think something is cooking. I don't think that Zack Snyder is out of the DC game quite yet. He mentioned going to watch Blue Beetle for a reason. Greg Silverman, former CEO of the studio, is tweeting, while Snyder is tweeting for WB as well. Everything is aligning. I think we could still see the restoration of the Snyderverse.